In episode 6 of the second season of Good Omens, the angel Aziraphale manifests his halo and then chucks it at the feet of the horde of demons that are besieging his bookshop. At first, nothing really happens. The halo just drifts gently down to the ground floor of the bookshop. It's only when one of the demons touches it with a foot that the halo explodes, presumably discorporating all of the demons in the area except for Shax, who falls unconscious. Visually, this is a really outstanding moment in the show where the special effects tend to be more subtle. It's a big moment for Aziraphale, showing that he is not a damsel in distress and can come up with his own creative solutions to problems, and that he's willing to go to the greatest lengths to protect Gabriel, or Jim, even though Gabriel had been truly horrible to him. He's also technically protecting Maggie and Nina, but I'm not sure he would have risked going to war with hell over two humans, no matter how fond he is of them. For me, this scene raises two big questions. The first being, why is Aziraphale so dedicated to protecting Gabriel? And the second is, what deeper meaning is there in the act of an angel sacrificing his halo? Surprisingly, I think these two disparate questions have related answers that may give us some hints as to what we could see in the Season 3 90-minute finale. Halos are not unique to Christianity. You can see them in the iconography of religions such as Buddhism and Hinduism, and in art both from the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, where both gods and heroes were often depicted with a nimbus of light around their heads, generally representing the glorification of specific characters. In fact, halos were sometimes referred to as glories. In Christianity, the halo tends to represent the divine light of God reflecting onto another entity, an angel or a person, or in some traditions, it is a divine light of grace that is generated more internally from one's own soul. In no religious tradition are they any sort of angelic weapon, which does make Aziraphale's use of his halo and the reference to the fact that apparently all halos can be used in this way and were used this way during the Great War that preceded the fall, very unexpected, which lends itself to that wry humor that infuses all of Good Omens. Crowley especially seems to find the situation funny.
What did you do to them all?
I did the thing with the halo.
You blew up your halo!
But what's written for a laugh in Good Omens often hides a deeper meaning, especially for the underlying emotional journey of a character. Aziraphale, guardian angel of the Eastern Gate, takes his angelic status very seriously. It's not just an important part of his identity, it's the core of it. He sees himself as being good in large part because he believes angels are good. He is an angel, therefore he is good. Of course, he also suffers from cognitive dissonance because he clearly believes that Crowley is, well, if not good, certainly not actually evil. But that's a different subject. Check out my video, I Forgive You, if you'd like to hear more about that. Back in the time of Job, we saw that Aziraphale considered honesty to be a core requirement for both goodness and angelic status. He believed he was giving up both of these things when he lied to Gabriel in order to save Job's children.
Aziraphale, who are they?
They are his new children. You have my word as an angel.
Here, he began to learn to exercise his own moral compass. I don't think it's going out on a limb to say that Aziraphale's halo can be seen by the audience as one representation of his core angelic nature. By using it to defend Gabriel, he's demonstrating that he's taken another big step, just like during the time of Job. He's not using his halo in a heaven-approved manner. He's using it as he sees fit to defy heaven, just like the lie he told to save Job's kids. But why on earth would Aziraphale take such a drastic measure to protect Gabriel? Let's look back to Job again. Aside from the littlest one...
And I'm Jemima! I made this pot! She did.
The kids aren't portrayed as particularly lovable characters. Keziah is entitled, and Enon doesn't respect personal space at all. Aziraphale presumably stood by during the Great Flood and witnessed numerous innocent kids die, even though it's clear that he at the very least had his doubts at that point. But the doubts eventually grew into this small act of rebellion, the lie. Those small acts of rebellion have piled up over the years, so when Jim, aka Gabriel, missing his memories, came to him presumably for help, Aziraphale was uniquely qualified among all beings to do just that. And unlike other angels, Aziraphale has developed the capacity for some empathy for other beings, even ones he isn't personally fond of. Aziraphale is keenly interested in the mystery of how Jim ended up naked in his parlor, but the mystery is irrelevant to his decision to help Jim. He does it because Jim seems to be in trouble with heaven. In Aziraphale's experience, heaven doesn't have a great track record when it comes to wrongfully persecuting someone. It isn't about if Gabriel deserves his help. He needs his help, and that's the important part to Aziraphale. He's not there to judge, just to be himself, a guardian angel, and help when and where he can. Aziraphale is willing to risk everything, even for someone he actively dislikes, because he believes it's the right thing to do. Aziraphale's character arc doesn't end here, of course. The 90-minute finale is right around the corner, by which I mean we hopefully see a release inside the next year. So what can we guess about Aziraphale's third chapter, his character resolution? To note that Aziraphale and Crowley are both willing to sacrifice, and to extrapolate that there will likely be some kind of sacrifice made in the finale is a pretty widespread belief in the fandom at this point. And the will it be Crowley, or will it be Aziraphale, or will it maybe be both debate continues unabated, right alongside the debates of what form the sacrifice will take. I personally think that there will be some kind of sacrifice, and I lean towards it being Aziraphale who makes it. We know about the symbolism of the scapegoat and the sacrificial goat, and if Crowley represents the scapegoat, the one taking the blame, that leaves Aziraphale as the sacrificial goat. Crowley has already been shown as willing to get into trouble to help others, as we see when he drinks the laudanum to save Elspeth. His character arc seems to be leaning in a different direction. Aziraphale, on the other hand, has nearly his entire identity tied up in the black and white thinking of heaven and hell, angels and demons, good and evil. He's been coaxed by Crowley into relying more and more on his own morality over the centuries, but he's still relatively insulated in his beliefs. So how would a sacrifice on Aziraphale's part make the most sense? It could be physical death, though I'm not personally a fan of this idea. It would be sad for a hot second, and then it would be undone somehow, by necessity, for us to get to the South Downs. Sacrifice that isn't meaningful and lasting is not a trope I like. I didn't like it in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I don't think I'd be a fan of it here either. It would not advance Aziraphale's character development meaningfully to be somehow killed and then somehow resurrected. We already know he'll put himself in harm's way to help others, so this would not be the most optimal culmination of his arc. Although I agree it could still work. Another option for sacrifice is something else physical, like losing the bookshop, but it already burned down once, and he willingly walked away from that at the end of Season 2 as well. That could be done to mirror both Season 1 and Season 2, but it might also simply feel redundant, and it wouldn't provide much opportunity for character growth. My own proposal is that he will lose his identity as an angel. It could be taken from him, as in the Metatron simply brainwiping him right away and sending him back to Earth, but I think it would be so much more meaningful if he chooses to risk it outright, or gives it up willingly. When Gabriel gave up his angelic identity, he did it willingly, but selfishly. He didn't really care about Armageddon and the suffering it would cause. He only cared about being with Beelzebub. Aziraphale would need to do it for selfless reasons, to protect or save others. Maybe Crowley, maybe the people on Wickbur Street, maybe even the whole world. What I think would be the most satisfying would be if Aziraphale realized the truth about heaven and hell and left of his own accord. I'd really like to see him remove his ring and reject heaven's lies completely. And I do think the Halo incident here in Season 2 is excellent foreshadowing for this potential upcoming moment. Blowing up his halo is a pretty good analogy for ultimately rejecting the paradigm he's lived in for so long, that there are two sides, one evil and one good, and the belief that simply being one of the angels makes you inherently good. Hot takes. I think it's kind of funny how much shade we all cast on Aziraphale for trying to get Maggie and Nina together. He only came up with the idea when Michael and Uriel pressed him about the reason for the overpowered miracle, and I think it's sweet that love was top of his mind as an answer. It's also sort of hilariously, technically true. The reason for the overpowered 25 Lazari miracle was love, just the love between Crowley and him. So his lie was accidentally the truth, and more foreshadowing for the final 15, and potentially the 90-minute finale, of course. And although Aziraphale and Crowley take their meddling to the extreme, Maggie did ask Aziraphale for help with her feelings about Nina just a few minutes before the angels arrived to question him. I'd like to thank all of the folks who help run the Discord server. They really make it such a special place. Check the link out in the description below. I'd also like to really thank my patrons who stuck with me through a pretty quiet summer after the con was over. But we're back in business now, so stay tuned for more videos. If you liked this video, you can check these out here. And as always, thanks for watching!